we remain very supportive of the concept that vaccination is a key critical part of working our way through this pandemic.
That's the message from Ohio's top medical experts after the news that Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine would be put on pause. We'll look at how much our vaccination efforts here in Central Ohio depend on that shot. Franklin County back in the highest tier of the state's COVID-19 advisory system. What this means for Ohio as we take a step backward in the pandemic. And we talk one-on-one with Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther about the state of the city and his plan to stop the rise in violence. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. This week, the state rushed to make some really big changes after the CDC and the FDA put a pause on the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. The pause came after 6 women developed severe blood clots. This is out of the nearly 7 million doses administered in the U.S. Now, if you had already received the vaccine, it's important to note you are at low risk of this happening to you if you had the shot more than a month ago. The symptoms usually show up 2 weeks after the shot. Those symptoms are severe headache, abdominal and leg pain, and shortness of breath. The day the CDC and FDA announced the pause, the Ohio Department of Health followed suit. Here's what Governor Mike DeWine had to say about the situation.
The important thing is to get the facts out. With Johnson & Johnson, this was 6 known cases out of 6 million. And I'm not minimizing that at all. And we're going to see what the experts decide to do. But in regard to Moderna and Pfizer, all evidence is that these are very, very strong. These are very, very effective, and these are very, very safe. For the most part, we have been allocating Johnson & Johnson to our colleges and our universities to enable the one shot to take place before the students go out around May 1st. I certainly encourage any college student to be vaccinated. There's opportunities out there with Pfizer and Moderna. And the good news is we achieved most of what we wanted to achieve already in regard to our college students, making that available to any college student who wanted. We have a ways to go. You can see that some of the universities have been able to switch over. Others are on pause.
We are taking a closer look at how much our vaccination efforts here in Central Ohio depend on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. 10 TV's Lindsay Mills went to the mass vaccination site at the state fairgrounds in Columbus to find out.
By the looks of it, here at the Ohio State Fairgrounds, vaccine distribution efforts are still going strong, with cars forming across the street, the line continuing through, eventually becoming 4 rows across. Meanwhile, a mass vaccination clinic at Adena that started with Johnson & Johnson exclusively has now pivoted to the Moderna vaccine. According to Columbus Public Health, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine had only accounted for a small amount of the vaccines already administered by that department. As of Tuesday, Columbus Public Health had given 114,172 vaccines. Of that amount, a little more than 8,000 were J&J. Zooming out for a statewide look, according to the Ohio Department of Health, there have been at least 264,311 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine administered in the state as of Monday. And right now, this number is not being broken down by county. However, we did hear from the Licking County Health Department, which has never received any doses of the J&J vaccine. And according to the Union County Health Department, they have only been administering the Pfizer vaccine at its public clinics. And of course, you'll remember many college campuses across the state had to stop their vaccine efforts for students. However, at Ohio Wesleyan, Delaware Public Health was able to continue its vaccine clinic today using the Pfizer vaccine. In Columbus, Lindsay Mills, 10 TV News.
We know you probably have questions about what's going on with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And that's why we went straight to members of our 10 TV team of experts for answers. Earlier this week on Wake Up CBUS, I asked Dr. Joe Gastaldo with Ohio Health about the pause and if people who got that J&J vaccine already get the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine as well.
If you have had the J&J vaccine, the immune response from that is a great immune response, and you are well protected from this contagious virus. So the recommendation, if you've had J&J, is not to seek the mRNA vaccines. You are fully vaccinated with the J&J vaccine 2 weeks after you received it.
Right now, more businesses are opening vaccination clinics at their workplaces. That's because Ohio vaccination providers are now allowed to designate 25% of their stock for businesses. Worthington Industries received its first shipment of doses late last week, started hosting drive-through vaccination clinics.
Having the vaccine here, it just makes it so much safer for me and my family.
Worthington Industries says because they have an on-site medical center and pharmacy, they applied and were approved to administer the vaccine. Like 10 TV, Worthington Industries is part of the Stop the Spread coalition aimed at stopping COVID-19. Franklin County is now the only county in the state at level 4 on the state COVID advisory system. That means there is severe exposure to COVID-19. Ohio is at 200 cases per 100,000, far from that 50 per 100,000 level we need to lift the health orders. Franklin County has 230 cases per 100,000 people, and all 7 indicators, including ER visits, hospital admissions, and outpatient visits, they're all on the rise. Despite that, Governor DeWine says he is not calling for any restrictions. He says, unlike in the past when our case count was much higher, this time we have the vaccine, which has allowed schools and businesses to stay open. DeWine says in Franklin County there are several reasons cases are going up.
A lot of people in Franklin County are now vaccinated. A lot of people aren't going to spread it. A lot of people aren't going to get it. We're making it harder and harder for this variant to multiply, but at the same time, it's so powerful that it is multiplying. If you have a child who's 16 or over, time to get the child vaccinated.
So far, more than 4 million Ohioans have been vaccinated. On the same day, Columbus health leaders and Mayor Ginther held a news conference. Mayor Ginther stressed this is an alert. This does not mean a stay-at-home advisory. Health professionals are not recommending schools go virtual. The county now meets the health indicators for purple, but health officials say case numbers and other indicators are nowhere near where they were at the pandemic's peak. They believe the rise in cases could have to do with spring break travel, as well as COVID fatigue. They're saying going back to purple is a warning to get back to the basics.
But it should be a wake-up call for people that we all have to do better. We have to continue to wear our mask, but most importantly, we need people to get vaccinated. We need our community, anyone who's 16 years of age and older, to get vaccinated so we can start to see a decrease in these cases sooner rather than later.
Doctors in Columbus are also encouraging eligible teens to get the vaccine. Angela Reichert is sharing the story of one Ohio teen who made that decision. Here's her why.
Why'd you want to get the vaccine?
So we could have a track season, and my little brother has asthma and I didn't want to risk him getting sick.
For Katie Wiskowski, her why is simple. She's 16, a sophomore, an athlete. When her track season was put on pause due to COVID-19, that hurt.
It was like pretty much your dreams being crushed at the moment because, well, you want to do something and then it just gets taken away from you.
And she doesn't want that to happen again, so she rolled up her sleeve to do her part, giving her mom peace of mind.
We had discussed that with her being a traveling athlete and going to multiple schools, multiple competitions, I thought it might be a smart idea considering she's running, and doing competition without a mask.
While cases of COVID-19 are going up in Ohio, kids aren't ending up in the hospital too often. Dr. Rustin Morse from Nationwide Children's Hospital.
Our volumes have been low, have been stable, and children generally do quite well if they get COVID.
But that doesn't mean the pandemic isn't impacting them.
Children being out of school, out of sports, not having social contact for almost a year is devastating. We need to keep the schools open. It's imperative, it's safe, it's the right thing to do.
So he's asking parents to talk to their kids about getting their shot. Right now, it's approved for those 16 and older, with Pfizer trying to get FDA approval for children as young as 12.
There's almost no reason for a healthy 16-year-old child not to get vaccinated to help protect him, herself, their family, and the community.
Katie says a few of her friends got their vaccine too. That's encouraging to her.
So we're getting closer.
That's cool. What would you say to someone your age, if they're trying to make that decision?
I would say you want to get it because you don't want to risk getting other people sick.
It's that simple. Reporting in Columbus, Angela Reigard, 10 TV News.
And of course, those under 18 need the okay from a parent to get the shot. They also have to have a parent or guardian with them at the appointment. The pandemic brought the issue of racial disparity to the forefront. We talked one-on-one with Mayor Ginther about the plan he has to fix the problem. The recent deaths of Black people during encounters with law enforcement sparked protests here in Columbus this week. Tuesday night, some protesters briefly got into police headquarters downtown before trading pepper spray with officers. Protesters say they were trying to sit in at the headquarters, but police shared body camera footage they say shows 20-year-old Hunter Matten hitting a sergeant with a bat. Matten is now charged with aggravated burglary. Mayor Andrew Ginther addressed the protests at his State of the City address on Wednesday. He says he hears those protesters loud and clear, but the mayor also says he hears the calls to stop the violence in our city. 10 TV's Andrew Kinsey talked one-on-one with Mayor Ginther after the address. They talked about all of that, plus the impact of the pandemic on Columbus.
We have been through quite a year. COVID-19.
Sure.
Talk about the surge, the response, and the rebound.
You know, as you know, we made national and international news, standing with the governor before the Arnold. That was one of the first big decisions that we had to make during this pandemic, was around the Arnold. And a lot of folks couldn't understand why we were making that decision at that point. Many folks were just learning about COVID-19 and what it was, and clearly that was the right decision. And we've been working very closely with the governor, the big city mayors, and the governor closely together to navigate what has been an unprecedented time. And I believe that we are in much better place from a public health standpoint, from a economic standpoint, because we've made tough decisions.
You talked about the pandemic, and it uncovered some disparities here in our community. What are some of those?
Well, I think clearly, based on what we're seeing with respect to race, COVID-19, didn't create the disparities, but I think they have served as an accelerant for those disparities and the divide in our community. We know that COVID-19 disproportionately negatively impacted our Black and brown neighbors, not just here, but around the country. And so, what that lays, I think, bare for all of us is the disparities and inequities with respect to health, those drivers of, the things that make our community so special: education, health, income, transportation, access to high quality early childhood education. And so what I think COVID has done is laid bare and magnified those disparities. But it also has created a sense of urgency for us to move on this equity agenda, to make sure that everyone in this community is able to share in Columbus's success. And that's why I'm so optimistic about our future.
With the city last year having 170 homicides, we are already at 60 this year. You said we couldn't simply police our way out of the spike of homicides in this city. Comprehensive neighborhood safety strategies, being involved, everyone having a role to play, plays a role in this. With the record homicides, does that approach appear to be working? And is this the solution, or is it going to take more?
Well, I think it's going to take more. And what we talked about here tonight and what we've been working on, we had a homicide record in 2017. We came together as a community, put together that comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy. We brought homicides and violent crime down in 2018 and 2019, only to have this spike in 2020 that, quite honestly, cities across the country have been dealing with. And it is definitely impacted by COVID and the economic insecurity, the global health pandemic, and all of its impact on housing and food insecurity and those types of things. We know that's feeding into it because there are mid-sized cities around the country who have seen dramatic spikes in violence. But what we're focused on is the violence here in our city, in our community. And that's why, we're dramatically ramping up our reroute program, not just investing in law enforcement, but investing in public health. The coalition there, the CARE Coalition, as well as the APPS program that's based in recreation and parks with interventionists that help young people who may be headed down the wrong path, helping to get them on the right track and away from this very dangerous behavior that they've engaged in. We're also working with the judges, the juvenile court judges and the judges in our court system, law enforcement, even the suburban community. Tonight we announced a $500,000 commitment to diversion programs to help young people get back on the path of, summer youth employment, after-school programming, educational enrichment opportunities, so that they can build a future for themselves and their families.
And we know there's a search underway for a new police chief. Where does that stand, and what particularly are you looking for in a leader of that department, considering we are now at 60 homicides in our city?
Well, clearly we need a change agent, someone that's going to help us change the culture within the division of police. That's why I'm looking for an external candidate. It's the first time in the city's history that we'll have an external candidate come in and lead the division of police. So I'm talking to mayors, police chiefs, law enforcement experts from around the country, and encouraging the best and the brightest to apply and be part of this process. I think we're going to have some really strong candidates, and I think we've also made some changes that's going to make it more attractive to folks from the outside, creating the position of assistant chief so that this new leader will be able to bring a team with them to help them change that culture within the division of police. And I think our deadline for applications is April 23rd. I envision a pretty expedited process, but an opportunity, probably virtually, to keep everybody safe, a way for the community to meet some of the finalists and be able to ask them some questions and interact with them before we make a decision, hopefully in the month of May.
Speaking of, you have been vocal in calling for federal and state government to enact some common sense gun laws on the books. Recently, the state of Ohio implementing the Stand Your Ground law. Do you feel that's counterproductive, maybe the wrong move to make?
Absolutely. It's dead wrong. It's terrible public policy. And we know that there are communities around the country, and every town has all the data on this. Every state where there has been this type of stand your ground legislation put in place, homicides and violence go up. And we know that it disproportionately will impact our black and brown neighbors. When in essence you put this stand your ground legislation, you're in essence telling folks they no longer have to justify retreat. They can shoot first and ask questions later. And that is the absolute wrong approach. And we know, when there was the shooting in Dayton just a couple of years ago, and the people of Dayton and the people of Ohio were saying, do something, this is not what they were talking about. They were talking about universal background checks, red flag laws, and making sure that we're keeping firearms out of the hands of the wrong people.
You can listen to all of Andrew's interview with Mayor Ginther at 10tv.com, or you can download the 10TV app. The man accused of vandalizing the State House this week is facing charges. This video from the Ohio State Highway Patrol shows a man setting off a fire extinguisher inside the building. Windows were left busted, and crews had to clean up all of that damage. When police got there, they found 36-year-old Jeremy Ibanez outside. They say he called 911 to get help after taking illegal drugs. Ibanez has been charged with vandalism. Up next, a way to help students with learning disabilities get some extra help for free.
It really has. We're just so grateful. Sorry, I'm muffling my words, but I'm just so happy, and I'm trying not to cry too.
Wow, the organization that has parents so happy, they're shedding tears. Ohio Representative Jim Jordan and the nation's top infectious disease expert got into a heated exchange during a hearing this week in Washington. Dr. Anthony Fauci told the House Oversight's Coronavirus Subcommittee that the daily number of infections in the U.S. will gradually come down as more people get vaccinated. During Fauci's testimony, Jordan interrupted, asking several times when the COVID-19 infection rate will be low enough to lift restrictions. And it got ugly.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the question. What does it have to be?
Sir. You need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
As you heard there, Congressional Representative Maxine Waters chimed in. Dr. Fauci eventually estimated that the country would need to get below 10,000 new infections a day before restrictions could be lifted. Jordan also made headlines this week for his opposition to a bill on Capitol Hill to study slavery reparations. The bill would create a commission that could consider how to provide Black Americans with reparations for slavery. A House panel approved the bill Wednesday. It still faces an uphill climb. Jordan said the commission has, quote, already decided to take money from people who were never involved in the evil of slavery and give it to people who were never subject to the evil of slavery. Some other news now. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who represents the 3rd District, also made some headlines this week for an Oval Office meeting. Beatty, who serves as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and a small group from that caucus met with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. They talked about the administration's first 100 days as well as their own, looking to find some common ground on issues including social justice, the pandemic, and affordable housing. Now let's talk about today's note of promise. Parents are giving the program Learning Aid Ohio rave reviews. It's a way to help students with learning disabilities get some extra help that's free. And now that program is continuing through the summer. 10 TV's Brittany Bailey talked with families about the positive impact.
We're just so grateful. Sorry, I'm muffling my words, but I'm just so happy. And I'm trying not to cry too.
That's what happens when a mother is simply overwhelmed with joy and pride for her son. 9-year-old Philip Taylor has blossomed with the help of his tutor through the Learning Aid Ohio program.
I say the past 6 months, everything has changed. He's more happier because he's starting to he's getting it. He's getting his math, he's getting the reading, he's comprehending it.
We're excited to talk and announce this summer opportunity in hopes that families who maybe just hadn't heard of this program yet can get in to participate for the summer.
And here is how that program works. Families with students on an individualized education program or Section 504 plan and experiencing financial hardship can apply for a $2,000 grant. That covers a personal tutor or aide for the student throughout the summer.
It's evident that the ripples and impact of children being really displaced out of their typical school rhythm for as long as it's gone on, those ripples are going to last a long time.
It's helped me a lot with my reading, and if I have really hard homework, I can just wait until I have my tutor because she helps me really a lot.
11-year-old Nick and his family were so grateful for the help, they sent a thank you card.
And as a family, we are very grateful because we are able to get that extra help that as parents, it's hard for us to do at home.
His self-confidence has improved. His reading tests have skyrocketed. His grades are outstanding.
And now that help won't take a break during summer break. Brittany Bailey, 10 TV News.
The Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio started this program to serve its families, but then it expanded statewide to serve children with all sorts of disabilities. So far, more than 1,000 students have been helped. You can find out more about applying for the summer program by visiting 10tv.com. That's really great. Thank you so much for being with us today. Remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.